4 disturbing alone at night horror stories. Welcome to Mr.Quentin channel, a paradise of horror stories that will make you shiver. Here, we specialize in telling the scariest stories about lonely nights, supernatural phenomena, and unsolved mysteries. In the video 4 disturbing alone at night horror stories, Mr. Quentin will lead you through terrifying experiences that will make your heart beat faster and your mind restless. Join the horror-loving community to explore your deepest fears with MR.Quentin. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any stories. Story 1. Night of Terror in Phoenix. I had always considered my home in Phoenix a sanctuary, a refuge from the relentless demands of my career. Nestled in a quiet neighborhood, the mid-century house stood as a testament to my hard-earned success. Its minimalist design, with expansive glass windows and clean lines, offered a sense of openness, yet the surrounding tall pines provided seclusion. The scent of the desert flora mingled with the crisp evening air, creating an ambience of serene isolation. My days were consumed by the corporate world, a realm where I thrived on structure and control. Yet beneath the polished exterior, remnants of a turbulent past lingered. As a child, I had been a victim of relentless bullying, an experience that instilled in me a profound sense of vulnerability. This history fueled my obsession with security, leading me to invest in state-of-the-art surveillance systems and reinforced locks. I believed these measures would shield me from the unpredictability of the world outside. One particular evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the walls, I settled into my leather armchair with a glass of bourbon. The amber liquid caught the dim light, its warmth a familiar comfort. The house was enveloped in silence, save for the occasional creak, a sound I had long attributed to the house settling, a benign reminder of its age. But that night, the creaks seemed more pronounced, echoing through the halls like whispers of a forgotten presence. Suddenly, a piercing beep shattered the tranquility. The security system's alert blared, indicating that the back door had been opened. A surge of adrenaline coursed through me, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I glanced at the monitor, expecting to see an empty doorway, a false alarm. Instead, the grainy footage revealed the silhouette of a figure slipping into the house, followed by another. Their movements were deliberate, almost ritualistic, as if they had rehearsed this intrusion countless times. Panic threatened to overtake me, but years of discipline held it at bay. I reached for my phone with trembling hands, dialing 911. The operator's voice was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around me. I whispered my situation, my address, and was assured that officers were on their way. The minutes stretched into an eternity, each second marked by the intruder's muffled footsteps drawing closer. As I waited, hidden in the shadows of my study, memories of my childhood fears resurfaced. The taunts, the threats, the feeling of being trapped with no escape, they all came rushing back, intertwining with the present terror. I realized that despite the years and the success, the sense of helplessness had never truly left me. The wail of sirens in the distance was a symphony of relief. The intruders, sensing their impending capture, scrambled to flee. I heard the back door slam, their hurried footsteps fading into the night. Moments later, the police arrived, their presence a beacon of safety. They apprehended the intruders in the backyard, discovering in their possession not only burglary tools, but also a detailed layout of my home, complete with notes on my daily routines. It was evident that this invasion was not random. I had been watched, studied, and targeted. In the aftermath, I fortified my home with even more advanced security measures, motion detectors, infrared cameras, a panic room concealed behind a bookshelf. Friends and colleagues offered words of comfort, yet I could see the unease in their eyes, a reflection of my own internal turmoil. Sleep became elusive, each creak of the house jolting me awake, drenched in sweat, my mind conjuring images of faceless intruders lurking in the shadows. One evening, as I reviewed the security footage for the umpteenth time, I noticed something that had previously escaped my attention. In the corner of the frame, just before the intruders entered, a figure stood beneath the street lamp, a man clad in a dark hoodie, his face obscured. He remained there for several minutes, watching before disappearing into the night. A shiver ran down my spine. Was he an accomplice, a scout, or perhaps someone else, someone who had been observing me for reasons beyond mere theft? Determined to reclaim my sense of security, I delved into researching local crime reports, seeking patterns or clues. I discovered a series of unsolved break-ins in the area, all sharing similar characteristics: entry through back doors, detailed knowledge of the victim's routines, and in each case, sightings of a hooded figure prior to the incidents. The realization that I was part of a larger, more sinister pattern only deepened my paranoia. Days turned into weeks, and the police investigation yielded little progress. The intruders refused to divulge any information, their silence a testament to their resolve or perhaps fear of a greater threat. I became a prisoner in my own home, the walls that once offered solace now feeling like a cage. Every shadow seemed to conceal a threat, every stranger on the street a potential adversary. In an attempt to regain the normalcy, I resumed my daily routines, though with heightened vigilance. One evening, while attending a business dinner, I overheard a conversation about a series of urban legends circulating in Phoenix, tales of a secret society that orchestrated home invasions, not for monetary gain, but to instill fear, to remind the affluent that their wealth could not shield them from the realities of the world. The stories were dismissed as mere folklore, yet they resonated with my experience. Haunted by the possibility that I had been a pawn in some twisted game, I became obsessed with uncovering the truth. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to Mr. Quentin and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness. And let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 2. Strange Calls in an Empty House. A weekend alone turned nightmare. I didn't think twice about staying home alone that weekend. At 22, I was a college student in suburban Atlanta, living between the relative calm of my family's house and the chaos of campus life. With my parents out of town and my workload piling up, I figured a weekend of solitude was the perfect opportunity to catch up on my studies. The house, usually bustling with noise, now felt oddly silent. The only sound was the occasional creak of wood settling or the faint hum of the refrigerator. But silence, as I would soon learn, can be deceiving. It was late Friday night, the air thick with the quiet stillness of the suburbs. I sat in my room, surrounded by textbooks and notes, the yellow light of my desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls, the occasional bark of a distant dog, or the faint rumble of a passing car served as fleeting reminders of the world outside. I felt safe, cocooned in the familiarity of my home, but safety is a fragile illusion. The phone rang just after midnight. Its shrill tone shattered the quiet, jolting me upright. My heart thudded as I glanced at the screen. Unknown caller. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the phone. Who calls at this hour? Curiosity outweighed caution, and I picked up. At first, there was only static, a faint crackling sound that sent a chill racing down my spine. Then a whisper. "I can see you." The words were soft, almost playful, but they hit me like a punch to the gut. My eyes darted toward the window. The blinds were half drawn, the dark yard beyond lit faintly by the porch light. Was someone really out there, or was this just a cruel joke? My pulse quickened as I hung up, the whisper lingering in my mind like a ghostly echo. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was just a prank. But as the minutes ticked by, unease settled over me. I found myself peering out the window, scanning the yard for any signs of movement. At first, there was nothing, just the familiar silhouette of the oak tree swaying gently in the breeze. But then, just beyond the reach of the light, I saw it, a shadow, a figure standing perfectly still, watching. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch. It was as if they were waiting, relishing my fear. Slowly, I backed away from the window, every instinct screaming at me to hide. I locked all the doors and windows, double-checking every latch. My hands trembled as I called the police, my voice barely steady enough to explain the situation. When the officers arrived, their flashlights cut through the darkness like beacons of hope. They searched the yard, the perimeter, even the nearby streets, but there was nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone lurking. "Probably just some kids messing around," one of them said, his tone dismissive. I wanted to believe him, to write it off as harmless mischief, but deep down, I knew better. The rest of the night passed in a haze of paranoia. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside sent me into a spiral of fear. I barely slept, jumping at shadows and flinching at the sound of my own breathing. By morning, exhaustion had dulled my senses, but the unease remained. Stepping onto the porch to grab the newspaper, I noticed something unusual. A piece of paper lying atop the neatly folded pages. My stomach churned as I picked it up. It was a photograph of me, taken through the very window I had looked out from the night before. My face, pale and wide-eyed with fear, stared back at me. The angle was perfect, capturing the exact moment I had parted the blinds. I stumbled back inside, locking the door behind me. My mind raced. How long had they been watching? Were they still out there? The police were called again, but without solid evidence or a suspect, there was little they could do. The officer's words, "Let us know if it happens again," felt more like a grim promise than reassurance. When my family returned on Sunday, I tried to explain what had happened. My mom's face was a mix of concern and disbelief, while my dad immediately set about installing security cameras and upgrading the locks. Despite their efforts, the sense of safety I had once felt in that house was gone. The place that had always been my refuge now felt like a cage, its walls closing in with every passing moment. The weeks turned into months, but the memory of that weekend stayed with me. Who was the caller? Why had they chosen me? I never found out. But even now, years later, the fear lingers. Every time the phone rings late at night, I feel a shiver run down my spine. And every so often, I catch myself glancing toward the window. half expecting to see a shadowy figure standing there, watching. You see, the scariest thing about that weekend wasn't the whisper on the phone or the photograph on the porch. It was the realization that someone had invaded my world, turned the familiar into the terrifying, and left me questioning the safety of every space I called home. They didn't need to break in to make me feel unsafe. All it took was a phone call, a shadow, and a lingering fear that I was never truly alone. So if you're ever home alone and the phone rings with an unknown caller, think twice before you answer. And if you do, be prepared for the possibility that the voice on the other end knows more about you than you'd ever want to imagine. Sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones who don't announce their presence. They just watch, wait and strike when you least expect it. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to Mr. Quentin and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness. And let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 3. The Clown Mask. A haunting obsession. It started as an unease I couldn't shake, a feeling that crawled under my skin each night as I locked up the bar. The streets of Austin were usually alive with laughter and distant music, but in those moments, they seemed deserted, silent, watching. I first noticed him 3 weeks ago, a figure in a clown mask, standing under the flickering streetlight across from the bar. He didn't move, didn't approach, just stood there, the garish painted grin, frozen in a mockery of amusement. I laughed it off at first. Probably some college kid pulling a prank, I told myself. But when it happened again the next night, and the night after, the laughter stopped. Every night he was there. Sometimes he'd be across the street, other times farther down the block, but always within sight. That grotesque grin burned into my mind like a brand. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he's harmless, I thought. A strange local trying to get a reaction. But the way he followed me, matching my pace from a distance as I walked home, his presence just close enough to keep me on edge, was anything but harmless. One night, I decided to confront him. Fueled by a mixture of frustration and fear, I yelled across the street, "What do you want?" He didn't answer. The clown mask tilted slightly, as if studying me, and then he took a step back into the shadows. That was the last time I tried to be brave. The situation escalated when I found the mask, not on him, but outside my apartment door. It was there one evening when I got home, staring up at me from the doormat. Beside it was a black bag, tied tightly with twine. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The weight of its mystery, more terrifying than anything I'd encountered before. Inside were objects I couldn't make sense of. A small doll with missing eyes, a handful of rusty nails, and a photograph of me locking up the bar. My blood turned to ice. That night, I kept the lights on, every curtain drawn and every door locked. Sleep eluded me. Around 3 a.m., a soft tap on my window shattered the silence. I froze, too afraid to look, but something compelled me to pull the curtain aside just an inch. He was there, the clown mask pressed against the glass, his hand slowly dragging down the pane as if to leave an invisible mark. I stumbled back, heart hammering in my chest, and called the police. My words were frantic, barely coherent, but they assured me they'd send someone immediately. By the time the officers arrived, he was gone. All they found was the mask and another black bag outside my door. This one contained a single object, a bloodied knife. "Do you have any enemies?" one of the officers asked, his tone more curious than concerned. I shook my head, unable to speak. The police left soon after, their assurances ringing hollow as I bolted every lock I had. Days blurred into a haze of paranoia. I stopped working late shifts and avoided walking anywhere alone. But he kept coming back, always closer, always bolder. One night, I woke to find him standing at the edge of my bed. The clown mask tilted slightly, that grotesque grin somehow more menacing in the dim light. I don't remember screaming, but I must have, because my neighbors banged on the walls and the figure disappeared as quickly as he'd appeared. I began to notice other oddities, a faint metallic smell lingering in the hallway, the sound of soft scraping against my walls at odd hours. My mind raced with possibilities. Who was he? Why me? I thought back to a night 6 months ago when I turned away a drunk patron at the bar. He'd been furious, shouting threats as he stumbled out into the night. Could it be him? Or was it someone else I'd unknowingly wronged? The uncertainty was suffocating. The final straw came when I found a handwritten note slipped under my door. It read, "You're mine." The words sent a chill through my spine. My hands shook as I called the police again, but they'd grown dismissive. Without clear evidence or an immediate threat, there was little they could do. I felt completely alone, trapped in a nightmare that seemed to tighten its grip with each passing day. One evening, as I stared at the mask now resting on my kitchen counter, I realized something. The clown's grin wasn't just painted. The red smears around its mouth, I'd assumed they were part of the design, looked disturbingly real under the harsh kitchen light. My stomach turned as I fought the urge to vomit. That night, I dreamed of him. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I saw him standing in a dark room, illuminated only by the faint glow of a single bulb swinging above. His mask was off, but his face was obscured by shadow. He whispered my name slowly, drawing out each syllable like a predator savoring its prey. When I woke, my apartment felt colder, emptier, as if something had shifted in the air. The next day I tried to leave Austin. I packed a bag, left a note for my landlord, and bought a bus ticket to a city where no one knew me. But as I sat in the station, waiting for the bus to arrive, I felt it again, that crawling unease, that sense of being watched. I turned slowly and there he was, standing in the crowd, motionless, the clown mask grinning through the chaos of the station. He didn't move, didn't come closer. But I knew. He was telling me there was no escape. Desperation drove me to confront him one last time. That night, I stood in my apartment, holding the mask I'd kept all these weeks. I screamed into the empty space, demanding answers. What do you want? Who are you? The lights flickered, and for the briefest moment I thought I saw him standing in the corner of the room. His mask replaced by a face, my face twisted into that same grotesque grin. I don't know how this will end. I've changed the locks, installed cameras, even stayed with friends, but he always finds me. The clown mask is no longer just a mask. It's a symbol, a message I can't decode. And the worst part, I'm starting to wonder if he's even human. His presence feels like a sickness, something crawling into my mind and rooting itself there. I see him in every shadow, hear him in every creak of the floorboards. If you're listening to this, let this be a warning. Some obsessions don't end, they only grow. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to Mr. Quentin and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 4. Stranger outside the radio station. A creepypasta tale. It's nights like these that make you question everything. I remember it all too clearly. The fluorescent hum of the radio station's empty corridors, the soundproofed walls swallowing every echo, and the eerie stillness that seemed to hang in the air, like the silence before a storm. I had just settled into my chair, adjusting the microphone and glancing at the script for the next broadcast, when the phone rang. It wasn't unusual. Listeners sometimes called in with questions or comments, but this call felt different. There was a static hum on the line, like a distant storm crackling in the background. "You're up late," a voice said, low and almost too calm. My stomach twisted as the voice spoke my name. "Look outside." That was it. Just those two words before the line went dead. For a moment I froze, the receiver still pressed to my ear, as a creeping sense of dread crawled up my spine. Against my better judgment, I got up and walked to the front of the station, each step feeling heavier than the last. The building's glass doors looked out onto an empty parking lot, dimly lit by a single flickering street lamp. And then I saw it, a figure, standing motionless in the shadows just beyond the reach of the light. My breath hitched, and for a moment I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But no, they were there, still as a statue, head tilted slightly as if they were studying me. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears, but I forced myself to step closer, trying to make out their features. Nothing. The shadows cloaked their face, but something about their stance felt wrong, like they didn't belong there or anywhere. I hurried back to the studio and called the police, my hands trembling so badly it took me 3 tries to dial the number. The wait for their arrival felt like an eternity. I kept glancing at the security monitors, hoping the cameras would provide some clarity, but the figure remained eerily still. When the officers finally arrived, the stranger was gone. They reviewed the footage, and what they found made my blood run cold. The person hadn't just been standing there when I saw them. They had been there for over an hour, just standing. And what was worse, they had been talking on the phone the entire time. The officers tried to reassure me, saying it was likely just a prank, but the unease didn't fade. Days turned into weeks, and while nothing else happened, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to hold a pair of unseen eyes, and every creak of the floorboards felt like a ghost of that night. A few nights later, I found something that nearly made me quit the job for good. I was locking up the station, still rattled from that earlier encounter, when I noticed something on the glass door. A smudged handprint. It was faint but unmistakable, as though someone had pressed their palm against the glass and dragged it downward. The police had said the figure never touched the building, but this proved otherwise. And then there was the envelope. I found it tucked under the door the next morning, addressed to me. Inside was a single piece of paper with the words, "We're not done," scrawled in shaky handwriting. My coworkers thought it was a prank, but I knew better. Over the following weeks, strange things began to happen. My car alarm would go off in the middle of the night, but there was never anyone there. I'd catch glimpses of shadows moving in my peripheral vision, only to find nothing when I turned to look. Once, I came home to find my kitchen window open, even though I was certain I had locked it before leaving. Each incident was small, almost easy to dismiss on its own, but together they painted a picture of someone who wanted me to feel vulnerable, to know they were always nearby. And then, one night, I heard the voice again. It came through the headphones while I was on air, faint at first, almost drowned out by the music. "Look outside." My blood turned to ice. I didn't want to, but I had to. This time, I wasn't alone. One of my coworkers was in the building with me. We both went to the front door, and there they were again. The same figure, standing in the same spot, but this time they were holding something, a sketch pad. They held it up, and even from the distance, I could see the drawing. It was me, sitting at the microphone, fear etched on my face. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. My coworker called the police, and again by the time they arrived, the figure was gone. But they left the sketch pad behind. The pages were filled with drawings of me at work, at home, even asleep in my bed. They never caught the person, and eventually I quit my job at the station. I moved to a new city, changed my number, and tried to put it all behind me. But the nightmares remain. Sometimes I'll wake up to the faint sound of static and the distant hum of a voice, whispering words I'll never forget. Look outside. As the darkness deepens and the stories grow more unsettling, we venture deeper into the unknown together. Each chilling tale brings us closer to the eerie truths lurking just beyond the veil of reality. The terror doesn't stop here, it only gets worse. Subscribe to MR.Quentin now and stay on the edge of your seat. You won't want to miss what's lurking in the shadows next. Hit the notification bell and prepare for the next terrifying chapter. Remember, in the world of DTC, the creeps are always waiting, and they never rest. Good luck sleeping tonight.